Hey, everybody. So if you have been hanging out with us for the last couple seasons of the podcast, you probably remember us mentioning Flaututi in our past episodes. Our friend Molly Sharp, who incidentally was also a guest in season 1, started Flaututi to share her awesome duet arrangements of standard viola rep, which are great for teaching, and it has now grown into a wide-ranging catalog of one-of-a-kind resources for violists and beyond. Steph, do you remember when we played one of the duets from a holiday bundle together?
Yes, it's one of my most cherished holiday memories.
Aww.
But actually, one of my favorites is something that all string instrumentalists would love. It's called Making Double Stops Ring, a guided exploration of just intonation. And Molly actually shared the viola version with us last year, and I am not exaggerating when I say that it completely changed the way I think about intonation. No one has ever explained it to me like this before. I think that we all realize on some level that a B in all situations is not the same, but why?
Yeah. Have you ever had that classic argument in a string quartet setting when you're trying to tune a chord and maybe we're playing that B and we're being told, no, it needs to go lower. No, it needs to go higher. It needs to go here. Wouldn't it be amazing to save all those hours for our string quartet students with no debate? We just know where it's supposed to go. Everyone agrees because there's only one way.
Right. You can just gift them copies of this book.
Yeah, exactly.
Nothing personal. Just here's a book about intonation. Well, Molly has made it easy for all of us to play in tune. So whether you play viola, violin, cello, or bass, there's a version for you. You can find this pragmatic book, viola duet arrangements of classic viola repertoire, and so much more at vlatutti.com under Marketplace, or look in this episode's show notes.
Welcome to the Viola-centric podcast. We are two curious violists finding inspiration through authentic and challenging conversations in the professional music world. I'm Liz.
And I'm Steph. Let's jump in the deep end. You know, you're representing all of Double Reeds right now.
Don't put the pressure on. Oh my God.
No, you're amazing. So to all of our listeners, you're hearing a new voice, and we're lucky enough to be joined by Alicia Maloney, who is an oboe player and a freelancer, just like us. And we thought, who better to join us and kind of either dispel these myths that we're all learning about on Mozart in the Jungle, or, you know, just give us the real scoop about what actually it takes to be a freelance oboe player.
That's right. For those of you who've been listening for the series so far, we have had many burning questions that we can't wait to have answered.
Oh my gosh, so many. There's so many questions.
I'm so delighted to be the voice of reason for the Double Reed community. Thank you for choosing me.
I love it so much.
So when this first came out in like 2014, I think. Did you watch it back then? And tell me about, because we had a conversation about how oboe players are kind of into this series. I don't know, ironically or how.
Okay, well, I don't want to speak for everyone, but I will say for myself, it is a bit of an ironic fascination with the show. I did watch it when it came out in 2014. I think it was on my bucket list to do, but it really kind of hit me that I needed to make it a priority because I was getting text messages from friends from high school, basically, who don't know anything about oboe playing other than the fact that I play the oboe. So a lot of real world people, I guess, were texting me, is this really your life? So I felt like it was my service, my duty to watch and to see.
Yes. Yeah. So how did those conversations go after you watched?
I think I might have told a number of non-musician people that, yes, this actually is, in fact, how my life is. And then suddenly everyone was a lot more interested in my life. But no, there were certain people that obviously who were asking more specific questions that I was happy to discuss, my life and how it actually matches up to this very insanely exaggerated TV show.
Exaggerated, really? No, I'm kidding. Well, we have put together a list of just these really amazing burning questions that they've been sitting with us. We're just like can't go on until we know the answers. Okay. Some of them are probably pretty straightforward to answer, yes or no. Feel free to expand on any as you see fit, and we'll see how this goes.
Sounds good. Hit me.
Okay, so first question, pretty straightforward question, actually. Do you think that Lola Kirk, who's the actress who plays Hailey, is a real oboist, or was she faking?
Okay, she was faking. Her embouchure alone is really what gave it away for me. She does a decent job putting the instrument together, and the fingers aren't that difficult, but the embouchure.
Perfect. Yeah. That is we were wondering if the faking was good.
It was better than some of the violin faking, I will say.
Yes.
A lot better.
Yes. To be continued.
Most of the violin faking. Yes. That is really, really great. Objectively, is the oboe an easy instrument to fake versus the violin?
Yes, I think so. I mean, the violin is awkward. Like, no one should really have to hold an instrument like that. At least the oboe is, directly in front of you, and the fingers kind of go in a normal way.
Yeah. It's very true, and we wouldn't know the embouchure issues, actually, so as long as her mouth is around.
Yeah, and in that sense, it wasn't, like, super obvious, but an oboist would pick up on it.
Yeah. Okay, good. I'm glad we cleared this up.
They obviously didn't have an oboist consultant.
No. They should have hired me. I was waiting. I was waiting for the call.
Just spend the money. Okay, so at one point, our protagonist, Hailey, says she's been practicing her oboe for 5 hours a day, 7 days a week since she was 8 years old. So, number one, is that a thing? Like, how many hours a day is it safe to play the oboe?
Yeah, we've heard all sorts of things about, like, the pressure in your brain.
Yeah, like back pressure, aneurysms,
I certainly hope it wasn't 5 hours straight, because that would be, like, completely insane. I mean, you need a break. You need to be able to breathe normally. I personally think that is wildly exaggerated. For one, most oboists don't start when they're 8. Some people will start that early. That's probably one of the earliest I've heard of. But most oboists start a little bit later after they've played another instrument. And as far as 5 hours a day for 7 days a week, I've never heard of that. That just sounds like totally extreme. I mean, as a professional, I'll play 5 hours a day because I have rehearsals. But solid practice 5 hours a day, and then rehearsals on top of that no.
Okay, that tracks. Yeah. That tracks.
Yeah, that was kind of what we suspected.
Okay, so this goes into something that we were talking about. I'll give you a little context. We had a discussion on one of the episodes about the tinkering that happens as double reed players go.
What? Never heard of it.
So we have this mental image of all of you with these like elaborate workshops, and you're tinkering whittling away at your reeds. Yep. Mm-hmm. Okay, what are your feelings on making reeds? Is this an enjoyable practice for you?
Yes, I love it. No,
some sarcasm there.
It's a bit of a love-hate relationship, and it sometimes varies by day. I don't think I necessarily love it for the most part. It's just like a chore that you have to do. But the thing I do love about it, I guess, is that when you kind of get into a rhythm with it, it really becomes like a huge part of your voice on the instrument. So like we can't play other people's or we can't play other people's reeds for the most part, because how you build your reed is very personal and it really affects your sound. So when I am miserable at my reed desk after 3 hours or whatever, I kind of find joy in it when I remind myself that like, oh, this is part of building my sound. But the short answer is no, I don't enjoy it at all. And it's it's mostly a chore, and it ends up being like 80% of what we do.
Yeah, that's the crazy thing is, talk about 5 hours a day of practice. Forget it. It's like 5 hours a day of reed making.
And that actually, that would have been the better answer to your question. 5 hours a day of practice doesn't seem feasible to me because you're really spending a large chunk of your time making reeds.
Yes.
Wow. Yeah, that makes so much sense. But yeah, that's a lot. Thank goodness I don't have to like whittle anything to play my instrument.
I know. But the development of sound, that's a very cool perspective, I think, and it makes a lot of sense. Everybody's mouth is slightly different, and you have different sounds you want to create, and the instrument responds differently, and that is a cool endeavor. It's just like probably the act of, I don't know, it's like a crazy thing. That's why podcasts exist.
Yes. Exactly. No, really, though.
To keep people company while they're making reeds.
Podcasts are perfect for oboe players.
Amazing.
Okay. So is reed making, does it take up so much time that you've had to miss out on parties or like social activities because you haven't made your reeds?
Maybe I'm a really bad role model because I prioritize parties.
I was just going to say, you're going to say the right answer.
Yeah, no, I don't often, I wouldn't say like, oh, I missed out on all these parties because of reed making. I certainly have to structure my week around making sure I make my reeds, but I mean, there hasn't really been a scenario where I'm sitting at my reed desk devastated that I'm missing the ranger down the street.
Oh, good. Okay, here's a doozy. We've got a good one for you. You have experience playing in a pit for a show, as we know. Have you ever? This is really important because I think that there are musicians in other instrument groups that would like to know this, just for their reference in the future. Have you ever been seated so close to the cellists in the pit that you can keep the music for one of them, and if they're running late, you can like place it out on the stand and set it out and even turn pages if they need it?
It's insane that you're asking me this question because I have a story that actually kind of connects to this.
Stop!
And,
no!
Steph, there's
gold.
a chance that you might have been in this performance because I know we used to play in the pit together a lot. But during a Nutcracker performance, I was called in last minute to basically sight read the Nutcracker on English horn, and the English horn player sits.
Oh, that is actually kind of close to the cellos.
Oh
my gosh.
And in this particular pit, it was so tight that like the cellist, I mean, their arm is basically in the way of my instrument while I'm playing. But it's funny you mentioned the turning pages because what actually happened was in the middle of performance when I was playing, I don't want to say it was a solo, but an exposed part where the cellists, I can't even remember if they were playing or not, but a draft went through the pit causing my page to turn. And I was in the middle of playing, and this cellist who I had never really spoken to, in fact, some people had called him quite grumpy, I think he was playing, and he stopped playing to turn, and he turned my page, and he held it for the entirety of the page while I played.
Oh my god.
He saved the day. Maybe it also might have been like he didn't want to play, so it was like, oh, now I can hold the page. But
I can take a break real quick.
But he held it.
This is far more important.
He held it down for me for like a solid minute. So it's so funny that you asked that question.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That is a great unexpected answer to that question, because it was the answer we were all expecting was, of course not.
No,
you know, this is the camaraderie that exists in a pit, right?
Totally.
They'll step in and help each other out when you need it.
Yeah.
I love it so much.
Yes. Okay, so there's an episode. Here's the next one. Yeah. There's an episode where they're doing a fundraiser, and they all go to this really fancy house, and there's this child prodigy flute player who couldn't have been more than like 10 years old. Are there such people? Are there prodigy flute players or prodigy oboe players who are like really young?
Okay, so I feel like if you asked me this question like 10 or 15 years ago, I would have been like, no, there's no way, because we all start later. I feel like most of my friends in the U.S., we played a different instrument before we started on oboe. But now that like YouTube is really big, it's super accessible. Like you can see these recordings of really, really young kids who can play all around the instrument. So I think, yes, I think there are. Wow. Yeah.
So lung capacity isn't something that is an issue even if they're young.
I mean, that's what I was told when I was younger and why we start later. But like, I've definitely seen videos of 10-year-olds playing concerti on the oboe. So
wow.
I don't know what they're eating over on that side of the world, but it's different.
Just more evolved than we are.
Yeah. More tenacious, that's for sure.
Oh, what's the earliest you've ever, in the morning, that you've ever had a lesson?
Ooh,
Alicia? Actually,
my regular time slot in college was 7 a.m. on Fridays. Yeah, which
okay, this is all turning out to be much closer to reality than
I think what we're learning here is that oboe players are just way more dedicated than string players are.
It was, I don't know, I'm trying to kind of...
That sounds awful.
It was terrible. I was my teacher's, I'm sorry, it wasn't college, it was grad school, but I was kind of like, not really his assistant, but his helper on a lot of organizational stuff. And I would have to organize the lessons. And there were 4 or 5 of us in the studio. But like with the way people's schedules worked, it was like the only time that I could go was 7 a.m. on Friday.
So that's not that far off from Hailey, who has 6 a.m. lessons on Saturday mornings, which...
I covet that extra hour, though.
We're like, no. Yeah. Oh, yeah. There's probably a big difference between leaving your house before 6 and leaving before 7.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
5 a.m. time is inhuman.
I think so, yeah.
Amazing.
So if, along these same lines, what's the most that you would pay for a lesson?
Ooh.
Like we learn that Hailey pays Betty how much? $400 for an hour lesson.
Cash.
I mean, we're in New York, right? So maybe, but I can't say that I've ever paid that much. I've paid over $200.
Yeah.
But I've never paid over
mid
that much.
200s would be my limit, and that would be like a really special circumstance.
Right.
And I mean, I'm not here to shun anyone on their lesson fee, but in like the show, if she's paying 400 something on a recurring basis, that's insane.
Where is she?
She's
a freelancer. Where is she getting that money?
Where did that $400 cash come from every week?
I don't know, but I want that gig.
$1,600 a month.
I
know. What is that gig?
That's rent.
She's paying that little student's paying her an exorbitant fee.
I'll take him.
True.
I'll take him if he's looking for another.
I forgot. Yeah,
Duncan.
Would you take collectible stamps as payment if they were worth $500? Very important question. Okay, so in one of these lessons, there's quite a bit of resilience training going on, and so one of the things that she does is tightly fasten this corset on Hailey, Is that good resilience training for playing the oboe? Does that do anything for you?
One of you had kind of, I think your ideas with the whole adversity training is kind of where they were going. It basically, wearing a corset makes it so that you can't breathe deeply in your abdomen. It kind of forces the breath up high in your chest, which is not how we breathe as oboe players.
Which is what you don't want, right?
It's not at all what you want. I wonder, I love how I'm defending her right now. I wonder if she's doing that to mimic like an audition circumstance or a performance circumstance where your nerves get to you and you kind of have that shallow breath. But I mean, I think there are other ways to mimic a performance situation and avoid the corset.
To accomplish that. Yeah, maybe 10 years later, the corset is cruel and unusual.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, and the ice bath, which,
yes. Yeah, trying to imagine doing that to myself playing, and that's just, I can't imagine a scenario where that's a good idea.
Very masochistic.
Totally.
Yeah. Okay, so what are the cheesiest pickup lines that you've heard that are directly related to your playing the oboe? So, for example, when Alex is like...
It's the thing you're going to mention, I feel
like that... Do your lips hurt? Or like...
Something about your
mouth related.
Yeah, and like... I mean, this is gross, but, like, if you can do that with a reed, then, like, what can you... You know, like, that type of comment. Like, I don't know word for word, but I've, like, definitely had something of that sort said to me.
A quick follow-up to that question, then. Did it work?
No! Okay, I have to say, the key to my heart has never been through the oboe, so... just... Attention, all people, eliminate any of your oboe pickup lines from your repertoire.
No oboe pickup lines.
Not good.
You heard it here.
Yeah. That resonates. I feel like same with me. I don't think complimenting the way how fast my fingers go on the viola is a way to get to me.
Yeah.
Oh, hilarious. Okay. All right. Pop quiz time, Alicia. Assuming that you haven't rewatched everything and this is fresh in your mind, how many oboe parts are in Mahler 8?
4 or 5. Is it 5?
It is 5.
Yes.
How we know this because Hailey has played. She was
She was 5th chair.
And of course, her and Lizzie lose their minds about being 5th chair.
Right.
She's going to be 5th chair. It's like the most exciting thing in the world. So, have you ever completely lost your mind at the thought of being 5th chair?
Well, actually, 5th chair is a highly coveted position when you're a freelancer, if you're just looking for quick money, because you usually only play on one movement. So, like...
Yes!
5th chair is kind of... I have played a 5th chair position, and most of the section is usually angry at you. Because they're like, oh, you only have to come in
because you get to leave
for 1/5 of these rehearsals.
Hilarious. So
go 5th chair.
So about those 5th chair parts.
Yes.
Would you ever feel so nervous about coming in for 5th chair that you would practice the same phrase over and over and over again? And is this effective practice?
Okay, well, the funny thing about her practicing that over and over again was that was also like a 2D passage where every single instrument is playing that in the orchestra. So I don't understand why she was hammering that so hard, because often in those 5th chair parts, there is some exposed material. It's usually on English horn. So I don't know why she was practicing that so much. But no, it's not an effective way to practice. That's an effective way to get tendinitis or to drive yourself insane. Usually, a certain number of repetitions is sufficient. Then maybe check it again later.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, especially if you're not making mistakes.
Right.
I mean, it's like, why keep going, belaboring.
And I think we've learned a lot about practice in the
in the last 9 years. Yeah, it does seem that way. Now, in terms of orchestra seating, this might be a pertinent question for some. Would the fifth oboe chair be seated left of principal oboe?
No, and follow-up answer, they would never give the A.
Okay.
She jumped.
I have to say, I haven't rewatched some of this, a lot of the series, but I distinctly remember that moment.
She's never forgotten.
No, because
burned in your memory.
it is.
You were too. We were like,
It would be such
were
a
so
slap
shocked.
in the face to the principal. It also, I mean, if the union got involved, the second can't give the tuning note. I mean, it's
Let alone
fifth sitting in the second chair position.
Oh man, it's just such a cringy scene. That one's burned in my memory too.
so in that episode, Hailey gets fired, yells out an expletive in the middle of rehearsal, and then she gets booted. And then as a backup, they pick the Berlioz Hungarian March.
Just print out 82 copies
right away. So how many oboe parts does that have? And is that something that all oboe players know?
Absolutely no idea. Is that actually
Okay, it was just so funny.
That's such a good question.
I don't know. I've never played it, and
and in the reason we had that question in the episode was because Betty looked at her and was like, "This doesn't have a fifth oboe," and she's like, "I know."
Very defeated.
like this is just casual conversation. Yeah, it's really ridiculous. Have you or anyone you know used the oboe in a provocative pose to seduce an object of affection?
This is an iconic scene.
my
Iconic
god,
episode.
Oh my god, yeah, okay. This might shock you, but no, I have not. And
That's true. We did establish earlier that's not it's not like a sexy.
I try to keep
that's
them
not a
separate.
sexy association.
Yeah, and I can't think of anyone who has. But you'll be the first to know if I ever do encounter that.
Perfect.
So if a person who did that then gifted you that very expensive oboe, how much would you have to clean it to play it yourself?
I would absolutely be handing that off to a professional. I don't think anything I could do would sanitize it enough.
There's no amount of swabbing that will make it okay.
No. That's going nowhere near me.
Oh, amazing. Okay, some more really burning questions. Have you ever performed an impromptu street concert with an interpretive dancer and the oboe at the same time?
No, but that's on my bucket list, and I wouldn't rule it out. I feel like I've been in exotic places with my oboe, and if it just came to me one day and felt like I could make it work, and someone wanted to dance there, I would do it. Yeah.
Love it.
Oh, that's
that.
great. And have you ever referred to your oboe as your axe?
No. I feel like I've heard...
Horn? Your horn?
My horn? Yeah, I referred to it as my horn. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that was the debate we had going. We're like, axes feel like string instruments.
Yeah. Never an axe. I've definitely called it a horn, but not normally.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And lastly, just for all of us to know, do you have a name for your oboe?
I do. Pierre.
Oh,
he's
I
French.
love that name.
He's French.
Pierre,
He's
the French
French.
oboe.
Love that.
Amazing.
Oh my gosh, I love that so much. That's amazing. Thank you for humoring us with all of these burning questions, Alicia. This is going to be so great for our listeners.
I hope I clarified.
Now we finally have
Yes.
definitive answers.
Got to learn some things today.
And you were surprised by some of the stuff too. So,
Namely,
Yes,
namely not that
for
separated
sure.
from reality
Yeah.
in some cases that we thought it was.
they did good.
They did okay. Yeah. All encompassing. Located in a historic mansion in Tacoma Park, Maryland, you might get the impression that the team at Potter Violins are as formal as the breathtaking building that they work in. But when you go inside, instead you'll find the most relatable, skilled, and friendly staff.
Yes, the people at Potter's are what really make it a special place. I love visiting because I know that whoever I work with is not going to make me feel like I'm crazy or just being picky. They're kind of like your favorite bartender. They're great listeners who give you what you need without judgment.
Yes, their technicians are not only super talented, creative, and resourceful, they take the time to collaborate with you so that the process of getting your instrument at its best really feels like a partnership.
So if you're in the area, definitely stop by and introduce yourself to Chris, Rob, Kimberly, Derek, Jim, Melissa, and the whole team, or visit potterviolins.com to find what you need online.
It's so fitting then that their shop is in this beautiful old house because the staff at Potter's really makes it feel like home.
Season 3 is sponsored by the Arc Rest. You know, Liz and I are always being asked about our Arc Rests, and we're happy to share how much we love them. The freedom of movement has been life-changing for me.
Me too. And I love how using the arc rest allows my instrument to vibrate fully. And depending on how my body's feeling, I can also change the placement of the bass.
Although Aaron and Tigran started the company in their home workshop, they've come a long way, continuing to innovate by experimenting with harder and softer woods, and even new materials like fiberglass.
There are basses for violin, viola, and even for small fractional instruments. And there are foam pads of different thicknesses, so you can find one that fits your body or instrument perfectly.
And the guys over at ArcRest are sharing a special discount code for our listeners. Use the code VIOLAcentric for 10% off anything on their site.
Yes, check out their offerings at thearcrest.com. That's TheArcrest.com. And don't forget to use the code VIOLAcentric.
Being freelance musicians means gigging in lots of different places with very unpredictable lighting situations.
Oh my gosh, yes. How many times have you shown up to a church gig and wondered if you'll actually be able to see the music by showtime?
Many times. Or it's a cocktail hour in a restaurant with ambient mood lighting at best.
We've all been there and have used those alien-looking bendy lights that only light up the top of the page, so that by the bottom of the music, you're sometimes just guessing, or maybe we'll call it being creative. We didn't know it at the time, but the Aria lights could have saved us lots of eye strain and unplanned improvisation.
Yes, and with a rechargeable battery that lasts 8 hours, you'll never have to carry backup AA's in your case. You'll just charge it up at home and take the Aria light to your gig. The battery will even hold a charge for years between uses, not that you would go that long.
Thank you so much to Aria Lights for their support this season. Please check them out at arialights.com.
So we're finally at the crescendo of the season.
We've reached it.
We've reached the crescendo.
Oh no, it's so upsetting.
Sorry, you guys. You know I don't mean that.
Apex.
Yes, the culmination of the season. It's
Climax.
the finale.
Let's just call it the climax. It's the climax.
Okay. I'm okay with that word.
That word is
We're all
fine,
comfortable
everybody.
with it.
It's fine.
We're evolved here.
So the episode opens with Alex and Hailey, and they're clearly cozy again, which I was really excited to see, actually,
Yeah.
at the outset of this episode.
Yeah.
And they're looking at photos from Alex's body spray campaign that he went down to Florida with that sketchy guy to do. And they're looking at them, and he's like, these are okay. They're just kind of cheesy.
Of my butt.
Of my butt. And Hailey's admiring them. She thinks they're okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then all of a sudden, Alex says, just kind of out of the blue, have you ever thought, I think I'm going to think about going into modeling or acting instead of dancing?
Yeah. It's having
And
an
I was like,
existential...
yeah, because those are much more stable careers.
He's having kind of an existential moment, it seems like. I think he does mention the beat up of his body, and I think that's something dancers do face. And they have such a quick expiration date, you know? It's like the shortest, saddest career is being a dancer.
Oh, I have a quick question for you,
Okay.
Alicia. So Do oboe players, do you get to a certain age when it just becomes less like your body just doesn't support playing the oboe anymore?
I don't think I'm anywhere near reaching that age, so I'm not sure.
Oh, no, I'm not saying you personally. I'm saying one.
I would assume, I guess what I mean is I don't actually know the age that happens, but I feel like at some point in your life, breathing becomes harder, and breathing is fundamental to oboe playing. So I feel like I see a lot of people are retiring in their 70s. So
Yeah.
Okay. So
not young.
It's not like,
Not young.
obviously not.
And I don't think it's one size
the answer.
fits all. I think it's just depends when the breathing starts to go.
Yeah. Back into the episode. So Alex is having these existential thoughts.
Yep.
It's hard on his body. It's hard on Dancer's body. And he starts to spread his toxic thoughts to Hailey.
Yeah, I was going to say.
I was kind of upset
is
about this.
It's like one thing to go through your existential dilemma. It's another to be like, I mean, what about you?
He gets very judgmental.
Just like, what, are you gonna go for this forever? And I mean, I understand where he's coming from. Like, I like that he says maybe it's okay if we don't want to do these things we say we want to do when we're 5 years old. Like, that makes a lot of sense, but just like, it's your thing, Like,
yes.
leave it.
He's clearly projecting it onto her.
Yeah.
He wants, misery loves company. I'm having these doubts. You should be having these doubts too. And it sucks.
Yeah.
And she nopes right out of there, which I think is good for her.
Yeah. She's like, okay, you can deal with this on your own. Bye.
Yeah.
And then we go to
Then we're right in rehearsal. And this is such a meaty part of the episode. Okay. So Rodrigo has convinced Anna Maria to play the Sibelius, which I'm sure she can play the crap out of, but we all know that she's not really, her heart is not in this type of music making anymore. And he's kind of coerced her to be there. So she's there.
And she's
playing the Sibelius
at first, somehow.
It's beautiful. It doesn't look beautiful, but it sounds beautiful. She's playing it left-handed, which is her shtick.
The air faking is really bad.
Yes, terrible faking.
It's really bad.
Truly terrible faking. Yeah. It's like so stiff. I think the stiffness is probably the biggest issue. That's what I noticed actually in most of the string playing faking is like if they taught them to be less stiff, it probably wouldn't look as bad. But when they're moving it like a robot,
But I was just thinking, okay, so what do you think that the actual live audio sounds like from one of these faking sessions? Because none of them actually know what they're doing. And if their bow is on the string and they're just like sawing back and forth, can you imagine?
They should do like a limited edition release of all the like sound from the soundtrack. Like
yes, unedited sound.
Producers, if you're listening. We'd love to be the first to air that.
We'll review it.
So she doesn't last long before she throws a temper tantrum, and she criticizes herself for being flat, and then she attacks the viola section for being too allegro, which is insane because everybody knows if anything we're going to be too slow.
Yes. And it was during her cadenza, so what the heck are we supposed to do? They're just sitting there, those innocent violists, and being attacked for being too allegro.
And Didi's like, oh, I'm not high now.
She sniffed that out really fast, though. It was kind of impressive that she was like, are you high?
Yeah.
She's nothing if not hyper aware. She's like too sensitive to everything around her.
She's very sensitive.
Could you imagine working with a soloist like that?
Well, okay. So I've had this question often, sitting in orchestra, watching a conductor and a soloist kind of like be at odds about something. And I'm like, is a solo performance for the soloist to express their intent, or is it for a conductor to execute their vision about the piece? I mean, ideally it's a collaboration, right? But who do you defer to? And I've seen so many soloists just get walked all over by a conductor.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, this is their, interpretation. Yeah. Shouldn't they get a little bit more say in this? So yes. I was curious about this moment.
What do you think, Alicia? Team soloist. For sure.
Same.
And I mean, that's who the audience is paying to hear. They don't need the conductor's interpretation.
Yeah.
Right.
I often feel this, and very palpably depending on the conductor. I really notice this a lot. In some situations, it's very clear that the conductor is skilled at following what a soloist wants to do, and then getting the orchestra to really like supplement that sound in a beautiful way. And then you get to the part where it's just symphonic pieces being played and it's not as strong, because that requires a different skill set from the conductor, and vice versa. I've been in situations where it's the symphony itself is like so rewarding to play and everybody feels so creatively inspired because the conductor has that skill, and then they get to accompanying the soloist and they really struggle with that, you know? So it's interesting, because I would assume then the best of the best are able to vacillate between those two hats that they're wearing, because I totally agree. I think the soloist is in charge. I had this one experience with a group that I will not name, but Joshua Bell was the soloist, and we were just playing Vivaldi Four Seasons, so very straightforward music, but he was clearly not okay with the way the conductor was trying to relay whatever he was doing with us. And he ultimately just said, can I just conduct it myself?
That's what he wanted all along. That's what I was going to say. Yeah. Josh Bell, he just wants to conduct it all along.
And I mean, with Vivaldi,
he doesn't think anybody can do it.
Why not?
As good as him.
Why not with Vivaldi? Like, you know, I mean, you don't need a conductor for Vivaldi, so it worked really well, actually. As soon as he was the one up there, everybody was like in line. You know, it's just like really interesting how that stuff works. But a soloist they should feel strong about their opinions, right? Like, I mean, like to your point, you know, if they just let an orchestra conductor kind of walk all over them, then they're not going to get the same kind of satisfaction out of the performance as they would if they were just able to like freely express themselves. Maybe he's just tired of that. He's like, I've been doing this long enough. I'm in charge. So, I don't know. Then she's like insulting the orchestra. It's like extra, you know. She calls them mediocre and...
And Bob comes to the rescue.
For once.
Bob's like, okay, break time.
Rodrigo's begging
Union
Bob.
Bob.
Sort of, yeah. I felt like Rodrigo was like fishing for the help, and he's been
please.
He's been
Yes.
on like
please let
the
it be
whole
break time.
season about like on top of the breaks, and he almost hesitated this time. I was like, this is your one chance, your one chance to be the hero. But I mean, he did do it.
So Hailey and Betty have this little offstage conversation where Hailey asks a question you should never, ever ask, especially after like one lesson with your super hard to read teacher. She says she wants to know if she has potential and if she can actually make a career of this. And Betty is way less than gentle with her.
Yeah.
And it was brutal.
And then she ended it. I wrote this in my notes because it was so bizarre. She delivers this like horrible truth, which is her personal policy, and then says, now pardon me, I've gots to tinkle, and walks off. It was like a mic drop moment. I've gots to tinkle.
Ruthless.
Yeah, I'm wondering this. Like, I don't know if I've ever had the balls to ask any teacher, do you think that I've got what it takes to do this? Have you? Okay.
No, I can't remember if I had some pretty honest conversations with my grad school teacher, but, you know, one of the things is she was like, can I get into this orchestra? And Betty's like, no, you can't get into the big leagues. Like, you won't get into the big leagues or whatever. And I thought about that and I was like, you know, yeah, like in terms of the audition process and everything that's entailed, is it better to be like realistic about those things? Was it delivered terribly? Yes, but that's Betty. Like, she's been rude to her. Every interaction they've ever had, she's been horribly rude to her. So this tracks. And then I don't know. I just feel though like I have this one anecdote, and it was not myself, but somebody else was playing a freelance job and was sitting with someone who's, you know, kind of a like warrior freelancer for decades and decades, and was fishing for positive feedback about the way they were sitting in the section, and was asking for feedback. And this person was like not very generous with them, and it cut them down. And it was like, well, you know, I mean, there's two sides to this coin. It's good to get feedback, but if you don't want to hear the feedback, that's another story. So we like to think that we can do everything we want to do, though. So maybe it's interesting because I have mixed feelings about how that storyline kind of wraps up by the end of the season. Yeah, which we'll get to.
Yeah. So the orchestra is kind of left stage. Rodrigo is comforting Anna Maria, and she's having these feelings about she doesn't do this type of performing anymore. And so I think it's a struggle with authenticity. You know, she's like, this isn't who I am anymore. And he's asking her to do this thing because he's changed. So anyway, it was a poignant little moment. And then I wrote, I think she needs to get laid. She's got that chastity belt.
It's ruining everything.
That's why she's so tense and like high strung.
Yeah.
Come on.
I was wondering how Rodrigo became the stable one in this episode because Hailey walks up and he's like asking her for his tea and she's like, I don't think I'm cut out for that. Like she's like falling apart and then she's like, this isn't your problem. And he's like, all right, I gotta hold the ship together. Like he really kind of stepped up and became a stable.
That is true. He's like the one who's talking everybody down.
Yes.
So he says at the end, he's like, I'm going to cut rehearsal short because I have to work out some interpretation things with the soloist, obviously. And he's like, oh, and I'm going to send you all individual cars to come pick you up and bring you to the concert tomorrow. When are they going to rehearse all of these interpretation changes? They're just going to show up at the concert and it's going to magically come together. I don't know.
Well, it turns out they don't even need to rehearse because of what happens anyways. So
what happens later? It would have been wasted time.
Really.
It was meant to be. P.S. I realized, this is crazy, the person who was sitting Principal Viola, I just gigged with her like a month or so ago.
Oh, really?
Yes! Shout out to a violist named Nora, who I met, like, literally
That's so
a month
funny.
ago.
How funny.
And I'm like, I recognize that. Oh my gosh. Okay, she's a real instrumentalist.
So the next scene, we're back at Hailey and Lizzie's apartment, and Lizzie has sold some stuff, and she wants to blow the town. She wants to take Hailey to traveling to spend all this money. And she bought Hailey a sweet suitcase, and she's like, let's go. And I love this. I think Lizzie is the best friend. I love her very much. I stand Lizzie the whole way through this whole season. She's my favorite character.
She also says, you have a dream, you have a life, you have an oboe. And I thought that should become like the universal slogan of like middle school band directors who are like trying to recruit oboe players. Like if someone said,
perfect.
You have
That's
a
the
dream,
ad campaign.
You have a life,
Yes.
you have an oboe. It's beautiful.
Oh. And then we see, the next scene, we see that Thomas is back.
He's made it.
So, yeah, he runs into Rodrigo, who's biking happily through the street, and Rodrigo is thrilled to see him, and Thomas is weird.
Yeah. Yeah, he's clearly not gotten himself quite right again.
Yeah. And then we see Hailey back in her apartment starting to practice, and then she decides that she is not going to practice, so she takes her oboe apart. It's just a very quick little scene that kind of reinforces her disillusionment with her current career path.
Have you been there, Alicia?
Oh, I've been there. I think everyone's been there at some point.
Yep.
Yeah, you take your instrument
Not ready.
and then you're like, not today.
Yep.
So everyone is arriving back at the concert hall for the performance in their private cars, which I'm like, how many cars did he have to hire? Like
So many
100
individual cars.
So many cars. And we find out that the orchestra is starting to become like more in favor of what Rodrigo is doing, his vision and everything. They're kind of taking him in as one of their own.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, it's interesting. I was just thinking about this, like the idea that they all arrive in their cars. You think about like, you know, other performing artists and how they're elevated to this level among their fans. That's like, I'm the one who arrives in the car. Like, I'm the performer. I'm the artist. I'm valued. And I think that was what he was getting at when he was saying, if they're all arriving in private cars, you should all be arriving in private cars. And maybe that's getting to the musicians. Like, they're starting to think, okay, yeah, like what I do is really valuable, and
That's a good point.
I like that perspective. I mean, it's massively wasteful, but from a conceptual standpoint, I like that idea because it's like, no, really, we should be the ones that are like, people are like, oh, there's the person who plays fifth oboe in the orchestra. And one of these cars is not going where it's supposed to go. And I very quickly realized this was on purpose, but we'll get there. Betty is in her car, and she is freaking out because this driver is telling her violin jokes, not viola jokes. I want to point that out. And
that are completely inaccurate.
Yes.
yeah.
And don't make any sense.
No, that is totally a viola joke, and he just said violinist instead of violist, like that they can only play in one position.
Yeah.
That's not a violin joke. But anyway, Betty is like, what are you doing? Why are you taking this route? Like, I don't understand what's happening. And we're going to find out what's happening with that before we do.
And then we flash to a backstage scene between Cynthia and Union Bob. And Bob is unexpectedly
so
quite a gentleman.
I was expecting him to be like, totally obsessed and kind of following her around like a puppy dog. But he was like, hey, I understand this was the one night thing and it was wonderful.
It was the third best night of my life.
That actually kind of made me feel terrible.
Her face when he said it was like, oh.
Only surpassed by the birth of his child and his wedding. Union Bob needs more excitement in his life.
He needs to get out. Union Bob does.
That is saying a lot. Oh.
We find out that Betty has been intentionally disappeared. Basically, someone's been hired to drive her around so that she misses the concert.
Yep.
And opening night is starting, so she's definitely at least late right now.
Oh, and Rodrigo is like, you're getting in there.
So he's showed up at the concert that no one has rehearsed for. And Hailey has showed up. She looks great.
She looks concert ready,
Lizzie,
you might even say.
She does.
Except she's not wearing sleeves,
That's
guys.
true. That's true.
I know. And her dress is probably too carelessly short.
I could not stop staring at her arms. I was like, they're bare arms. She's going to be in trouble.
Personnel manager is getting me on her.
Yes.
And then we see that Lizzie came to her show.
Yes.
Lizzie is the best friend.
Yes.
And she's sitting next to Brad Sharp of podcasting fame.
Be sharp. And they have this weird chemistry, like a weird interaction with each other.
Yes. So he's being super self-important. He's like, we should use this line, Liz. You probably recognize me from my voice. That's our new line, Liz.
Totally. Yep.
You probably recognize me
You
from my
probably
voice.
recognize me from my voice.
But we also learn here that Lizzie now prefers to go by Elizabeth.
She's a changed woman.
This character needs her own show. She needs her own show. And she is a changed woman. Yes.
I fully understand this dilemma. I did not like being called Lizzie ever. But I quashed that far earlier in my life than Elizabeth did in this show. Okay, now we get to see the fact that I put in all caps, OMG, I knew it, and freaking ridiculous.
Oh, that she gets put in.
That Rodrigo.
Did you also see?
Yeah, saves
Wait,
the
did
day.
you also see that Marlon had the nerve to show up at the concert?
Oh, yes. I have that.
With his new mark?
Yes, with his new mark. I had that written down, too.
With this older woman.
Yeah.
It's funny.
Yes.
Anyway.
Okay, so the conductor of all people saves the day for this assistant of his and gives her an oboe seat by derailing the principal, which, by the way, in a concert, would you ever want this to happen?
That's like, I feel like, maybe
No.
not to toot my own horn, but I feel like a principal oboist is one of the members of the orchestra you would not want to be missing. Like, you would not want your second oboist to have to step up and sight read the concert and bring in a totally new oboist to fill the section. He was so chill. Right. I mean, I know he orchestrated the whole thing, but
yeah, he doesn't concern himself with, like, those things, I guess. It's just so ridiculous. It's extra ridiculous. And I think, I don't know how truthful this is to the story of Blair Tyndall's life. I assume a lot of liberties were taken here. But in my mind, I'm like, but this isn't really proving anything. I feel very strongly that many musicians can play in a top-tier orchestra, but like winning the job of a top-tier orchestra is a whole other story. So it's not necessarily contradicting what Betty says. Of course she can sit and play clearly and sight read and be really good at it, but it's an extra ridiculous thing.
Strongly agree.
She's getting her lucky break.
I think that's true too. I think that we don't recognize or admit the amount of luck that goes into being successful as a freelancer. It's, yes, you have to be able to play. Yes, you have to be professional and be on time. Yes, you have to have good people skills, but you also have to be in the right place at the right time, and all those things come into play. I think there's a lot of luck, and I could totally see this happening. Like somebody from the sub list, like maybe not the conductor intentionally like disappearing the first oboe player, but the principal oboe player, but I mean, definitely being asked to step in at the last minute. I've been there.
Yeah.
I know,
I've been
Alicia,
there,
you've been there too. We've all been there where you had to like jump in and sight read something and you just pray that you do a good job. And because you do a good job, you get asked back. And that is a lot of circumstance that goes into it.
Yep. So the concert is kicked off. Anna Maria is... I actually kind of love her in spite of her insanity. There's something I really like about her. She's just unabashed. She doesn't care.
She knows who she is.
She knows who she is. And you get this moment of tenderness before she goes on stage that it's like she loves him and she's trying to do this for him. As unsuccessful as it's going to be.
I think we all kind of knew. I was holding my breath for sure.
I was hoping. I was really hoping.
Yeah. But she goes up there. They start the concerto.
Bucking tradition,
well, first
by the
of all,
way. No overture.
Pardon? No overture. They start with the concerto.
Good for them.
And the audience is like absolutely riled up.
Like a rock concert.
It's, yes, the most enthusiastic audience that I've ever seen. I've never seen anyone give a standing ovation before the concert even started.
They did a program change too. So like I feel like typically that's not met with like such enthusiasm. It's like
right. Yeah, even that Marlon's friend was like, I thought they were doing Mahler.
Oh, it's hilarious.
So Anna Maria, the piece starts. She's playing with no chin rest.
Oh, I didn't notice that.
Yes, no chin rest, which is no shoulder rest. That's what goes on the bottom.
Nope.
I can see that. Many violinists, violists play without that, but no chin rest.
Just silly.
Like on the top. Weird.
Just silly. At least Thomas calls out the fact that it's a lefty violinist.
Yeah.
And he's like losing his mind. And when she starts, it's beautiful. Well, whoever's playing for her.
It.
Good job, whoever that is.
And then it doesn't last very long. She implodes.
Can't do it.
Just, I will not stand in front of this third-rate orchestra playing for these bourgeois pigs. Mm-hmm. So she wants to leave.
Yep.
And storm off stage, and she wants Rodrigo to come with her.
Yep.
And Lizzie, rightfully so, is incensed. Elizabeth is incensed. She's in the audience, and she's like, that crazy bee just effed up my friend's debut.
Yes.
I love it. But Rodrigo, he won't leave.
No. This is his orchestra. These are his people now.
Did you guys catch when he talks to the audience and he says that the orchestra has immense potential, but I know we're not there yet? I was like, yes, I was in the orchestra when he said that. I would just be like, rude. Like, I'm not going to play.
Right.
Like, way to just like insult them right before they have to perform.
I know. Yeah. It is. It's very
it has community orchestra vibes.
Yeah.
But apparently it's very hard to get into per Betty.
Yeah. There's like seasons of orchestras. There's the life cycles of orchestras. Maybe the New York Symphony is just in its end season of wintered professionals. And, the rule is that they get their position until they die or leave. So, maybe they just need a little new life breathed into them. I think it's reasonable to expect that an orchestra may have lost some of its luster even at the top tier, because I think complacency is a real thing in some of those jobs. Whether or not you talk about it on opening night
openly
to the audience
and to the orchestra right before playing.
Meanwhile, the whole audience is like, are they not up to their potential? I don't know.
Where's all my donor money been going? But they're ready to patch it up, though. They have a plan B. And Warren, the concertmaster, is like, oh, yeah, I totally have Sibelius in my back pocket, memorized to play for everyone right now at this very moment. Yep. Rodrigo grabs an instrument and is going to join the section. And Thomas gets asked up on stage to conduct, which is like the most logical. If he's truly a conductor, he should be able to do that, right?
Yeah, how many times?
But apparently he hasn't done it since 1989 in Rio de Janeiro. 89? That was how he was familiar with the piece. That was his little remark. I was like, excuse me? This is played at least once a year.
Sibelius violin.
Yeah.
Sibelius violin concerto is pretty standard rep.
Yeah. Certainly
he
would
have done it at Thomas's age and experience level. He would have done it more than just once.
Within 25
30 years ago.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Oh, yeah, but he needs to get rid of the cobwebs in his head, so he forces Gloria to slap him really hard. And he's like, all right, I'm ready to go. Get me in the game.
Okay. I'm sober enough now.
It's all so much of this had like sporting event vibes, which I'm certain is for an audience of non-musicians. Like, how can they relate to what we're going through? If not, to shape it like a sporting event.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, it was put me in coach vibes.
And this is where the little solo of the viola comes in with the complementing the
concerto.
Yes.
So Warren is playing the solo and he's doing a bang up job.
Yeah, it's just
although
whipping it out.
He cannot fake either.
His is worse.
He can't fake violin either.
His is worse.
Yeah.
It's bad.
Yeah, it's stiff.
Yeah, it's almost worse.
Yes, absolutely.
But the performance is a success.
Yes.
And they're popping bottles after the show. And who is this fella who's like, I once did PR for Insane Clown Posse, but these people
That was the marketing guy we met at the very beginning.
Oh.
Yes.
Okay. I didn't recognize him.
Yeah, but they're clearly feeling their post-concert high. Everybody is.
Yeah.
Rodrigo and Hailey especially.
Yes. So this was like the most awkward kiss ever.
And no one reacts. No one around them reacts.
They also didn't react. It was like instant makeout.
So weird.
And then, no one saw that. It was extended. And there were a lot of people there.
I wrote, was it an accident?
Right.
I mean, we've been waiting for this. I thought it was going to be a much more like romantic and intimate moment.
Yeah. I do not feel their chemistry at all.
No.
I sense zero chemistry. It's weird. It feels so contrived.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But did you see the way they were looking
there's a clear
at each
power
other in the orchestra concert?
Yes, I know. They had eyes. Yes. It's just a crazy thing, though, like all around, to be kissing like that at the party afterwards, and then just turn around and like resume talking to someone else. Like,
I'm ashamed to admit this, but I did rewind it and watch it twice because I was trying to figure out. Okay, so this could be a debate, but he kisses her in like a peck way, and then I feel like what I saw was that she actually kind of initiates the more aggressive, and then they both go at it. Yeah. And then he was, I think he's like, he says like, Hailey after, like kind of like reacting like he didn't expect that from her. So I think she was actually kind of more of the initiator.
I agree. Yes, that is what I noticed too, was that it wasn't initially supposed to be a makeout kiss. And then she's like, oh, I'm going to go for it. She was just like feeling the high. Maybe she was super grateful because she got to play.
This is what I do after every major opportunity I'm given.
I mean, maybe it was like just a difference in cultures. Like he's European, right? Yeah. So he kisses everybody, probably on the lips. And she was like, oh.
Yeah. Yes. Definitely will create some drama leading into season 2, that's for sure.
Yes. So Thomas is back and he's talking with Cynthia. And apparently this pill popping habit that she has is a habit. And he knows about it. And she's been doing it for a while. And he wants her to stop taking the pills. So do we think that she will?
No. I think it's going to get worse before it gets better. Yeah,
for sure.
I also don't really believe that he's stopped drinking. So we'll see how that goes. Yeah. I think he's still not quite right. I don't think he's figured his stuff out yet. So we'll see. Pending drama. Brad Sharp is smitten with Elizabeth.
Yes. She introduces him as the one who's smitten with me.
Yes.
And I just love her confidence.
Yep, and they're going to, I think Lizzie. It seems to me like they're going to go travel. They're going to do the trip.
Oh, they'll go do the trip and Hailey will stay. She'll use the suitcase.
She asked if he'll put it in the suitcase, I think. But,
yes.
Yeah, they're going to travel.
Maybe they're going to do some journeying together. She could be a guest on the podcast.
Yes.
A co-host, if you will.
Yes, and then Betty arrives finally from her epic odyssey around the city, and she congratulates Hailey. So clearly the temperature in hell needs to be checked because she's actually congratulating Hailey. She's like, you did okay.
Yep, brutally honest.
Yeah.
Brutally honest and honest.
That's what we expect from her.
Yep.
That's her brand.
Yep.
And then we see that Alex has showed up unexpectedly, and he kisses Hailey.
More awkward kissing.
Very awkward kissing. Yeah. So she's going to be torn, I think. She's got one man who believes in her and the other one who projects his insecurities on her. Who will she choose? And that's how we leave the season.
Yeah, it's going to be a wild ride into season 2.
Yeah.
Alicia, thank you for being here. You know, for as many times as the cellist Cynthia is able to refer Hailey for gigs, we will gladly refer you for all the gigs that people ask us for.
Oh, you guys are amazing. Thank you.
Whenever anyone asks me for an oboe player.
Whenever I get asked, you're going to get
Just
called.
route them to this podcast first.
Then they know what they're getting into.
No, but thank you for being such a good sport. This is a great way to wrap up our little side fun project of doing Mozart in the Jungle this year.
Thanks for having me.
Fun.
It's great to have you.
It's been a blast.
Thank you so much for listening today, and thanks also to our season sponsors, Arkrest, Potter Violins, and Aria Lights.
Another thanks to Alto Clef Gifts, where you can purchase viola-centric shirts and mugs, and a variety of other fun items featuring our beloved Alto Clef.
If you loved today's episode, consider writing us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. And if you want the chance to hang with us and have access to behind-the-scenes audio and video recordings, check out our new Patreon.
Our episodes are edited and produced by Emily McMahon and Liz O'Hara-Starr.
The viola-centric theme music was written and produced by JP Wogeman and is performed by Steph and myself.
Thanks again for listening. Let's talk soon.